It's finally time to stop being serious for once and just have a fucking blast for once. Because we were like in this review, we were talking so seriously about the first three. Now we're gonna throw all of that out the fucking window. Let's talk about part four, American Propaganda Rocky movie. Let's go.
I
So, what do you
love
guys have to
that
say?
robot.
That robot, I hate that
Oh,
robot. I hate that stupid thing.
the robot. Come on, the
This
robot's kind of
movie is
cool, I guess.
so 80s, man. Everything about it is
Yeah.
so 80s. Like the story is so 80, the music, like the jokes, like the robot. It is such an 80s film. This is a film that could not been made in any other time period.
No, like this is like with the Cold
No.
War propaganda in it. Like this is full on just. I mean, when this movie starts, the first thing you see is a U.S. boxing glove and a USSR boxing glove just blowing up right into it.
It is
Exactly, bro. Rocky 4. Oh man.
Uh,
it's such a goofy movie.
but
It is.
where
But
do we
I
even
think we should
start?
talk about the one serious aspect of it, which is Apollo dying.
Yeah. Do you want to actually where should we start? Do you want to start with the we can start with the birthday. You know, it's Polly's birthday,
Get
man.
out with that
Yeah,
robot. Fuck you.
What do you mean? The robot's the best part. It definitely
No,
wasn't
that's
like,
the best
when
part.
he has like a
oh,
romantic relationship with a robot.
yeah, it's so good, bro.
I mean, you really see Apollo say like, "What the hell is that thing?"
That was probably the funniest part, to be honest.
Yeah.
I would just like it.
Anyway, you guys want to talk about Apollo? How he was in this
Oh
movie?
yeah, he dies.
Yeah.
When I first saw that, I was so surprised he died. I did not expect him. Like I saw him fall on the ground. I was like, oh, he's gonna get back up, right?
No, he
No,
died.
we just cut right to his grave, like to his funeral, and he's just dead. And you see his like wife all sad and crying next to Rocky. It is such. It was a shocker when I saw it. I'll tell you that much.
If he dies,
Like,
he dies.
if he dies, he dies.
And
And
once
you want to
again,
talk about Drago, actually?
Oh,
yes,
Drago. He's just a fucking robot, man.
bro.
Like he's literally a
Literally.
jet machine trained by the Russians. Like,
Yeah,
bro.
like he doesn't say a single word. Like the most he says is maybe like if he dies, he dies, and he hardly even freaking speaks. He's like a Frankenstein monster.
He just lets his
Yeah.
like his wife like do everything for him when it comes to like speaking.
But
Which like
I'll talk about the serious aspect first, and then we'll just get into the fun, which is
yeah.
definitely Apollo Creed, because just like the first two movies that had Apollo be ignorant and all that, like he just, he didn't take it seriously. Once again, you know, history repeats, and he does this with Ivan Drago. Like he does not take the fight
Yeah.
seriously at all. Because even
Which
during the
granted was really entertaining, I'll tell you that one.
like during the press conference, I mean, we really see Apollo just roast the heck out of Drago. Like just making fun of like how tall he is and like all this stuff. The fact that he's Russian. And then we get to the actual match, which Drago, he's
We go
just
to New Vegas or sorry, Las
yeah,
Vegas, baby.
he's just standing in the
Lot.
middle of the ring, and all of a sudden these dancing ladies just start going around him, and then you see Apollo just rise above the ceiling with the most 80s American music you can think of. Which I
It
will say,
is
that song does go hard.
it's a
Say
wonderful
what you will.
it's a wonderful scene.
Who would have knew that right after that though, Apollo got his fucking ass beat.
He gets
Kill.
destroyed. He dies.
He dies. He actually
Just
just dies.
nice.
It's not even 15 minutes in the movie and one character is already dead.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean on one hand, it's like it's kind of sad to see him go, especially so early on in the series. But at the same time, you know, it still left an impact. Like
Yeah.
it was crazy when that happened.
And then we get to now, like, is Rocky gonna fight him now? Or because Adrian is basically saying to him, Adrian says it's not my words, her words. It's a suicide mission, Rocky. You're gonna fucking die.
He's gonna die.
Yeah, because she knows that guy's a fucking beast.
Because he's only had one match so far. In that match, that person's dead. then we get to the scene with Rocky in his car, just driving, thinking about all the moments with it.
That
Which once
I'm
again,
not gonna. Out of all the scenes, I feel like that's the one that shouldn't really be there. Like I get it. It's supposed to be emotional and like a send off to like Apollo, but it kind of drags a little bit too long just because most of it is just like flashback scenes of like previous movies, just with like 80s music playing in the background. Like it's kind of funny in some ways, but it's also kind of just it feels a bit unnecessary for the movie.
right. And then we get to Russia, which, you know, actually, I will say that's another aspect I will say is also a little more serious about it. I like how after Apollo dies, Duke takes over as like Rocky's new manager. I think that was a nice way to
Yeah,
take it. Because
yeah.
we
I
don't really
think
get to see much of Duke in the previous movies. He's kind of just there, right?
yeah. I mean, you see him like in a couple of like, the first movies. Like he's the one who was trying to get Apollo to actually take the fight seriously because he was watching Rocky on the TV kicking butt, and it's like, hey Apollo, you might want to actually like take a fight seriously. Of course he didn't, but eventually he does. So. But I think it's kind of cool that they kept him and now made him like kind of like the replacement for like what Mickey and Apollo was in the previous movies, and like making him the new coach for him.
And
They even do it all the way up to like Balboa, which I thought was kind of cool.
and right after that, we get another training montage with
Wait,
Rocky
wait,
and
wait! You forgot the best scene in the movie,
what?
the Alvin and the Chipmunks scene,
Shut
where you
up.
literally
Oh,
hear Apollo listen to Alvin and the Chipmunks, bro. It is so good.
Shut
God,
up.
dude.
Christmas, Christmas time is here. Time for toys and time for cheer. It's so good.
Shut up.
And it's the classic one too. I mean, of course it's the classic one, but like it's so good. It's so good, bro.
Also, the train montages, like this time instead of Rocky just like training in like cities or whatever, this time he's just going into the woods and just training out
He
there. And
goes
he
a
even
beer.
climbs a fucking mountain. He climbs a mountain.
He just goes,
Oh boy.
Drago, Drago.
Drago, Drago.
Like,
Yeah, it's crazy how and just so you know that mountain, like I saw like a whole video about it of somebody like looking at the location. Like that mountain is tough to climb, so they probably had to like fly Stallone up there or
they probably had a
something.
helicopter or something.
Probably, yeah, yeah.
Ooh,
It's
props
because
to
it's some
him.
like mountain like Wyoming. I think yeah, Wyoming. But
Mhm.
yeah, one of my favorite parts in the movie is when they get to like the when they get to Russia and Rocky gets on stage for the fight, and then the Russian music plays like the communist music. Fuck it. So the
The
Soviet Union.
anthem.
Yeah, the Union anthem. I thought that was fucking crazy. And then when Drago was finally fighting Rocky, and that fight it's just the most 80s fight ever. And then Drago's like, man, this man is made of iron. Like he says that in Russian. He says like a few lines in Russian, just so you guys know. But
Yeah,
yeah,
he
the
starts
fight
to
was
get like a lot
all
more emotional towards the end of the fight.
yeah. Once he realizes that Rocky may have a chance at knocking his big ass down, you know.
Do you want to actually hear something though?
What?
I actually
But
just heard of this recently. But he actually, like, the actor who played Drago actually sent Stallone into, like, the hospital for a couple of days because of, like, the fighting they were doing. Because he's actually, like, super ripped. And, like, it's not just, like, an acting thing. He's actually really that physically strong. And so, during, like, the sparring they had for, like, the filming, he actually, like, broke a bit of, like, I think it was, like, a bit of, like, his heart or something. So he had to like go to the hospital for a couple of days
yeah,
to like let it heal.
What the
Like he was actually that crazy strong, like as a
fucking hell.
person.
Jeez.
Yeah, they had to like get a helicopter, I think, and lift him off. Like when that happened. Yeah, I think. Yeah,
Man,
I think like Stallone like mentions it in like an interview.
Well,
yeah.
Like,
shit. He actually got his ass beaten in real life.
yeah, I mean the actual guy. I mean, one thing I'll definitely give the movie credit to is like how imposing they make him be. Like he is so tall and like he feels like a fictional guy. He doesn't seem like a real person. Like with his hair and like his super chiseled body. Like he looks
Like
it's like it
when
came
Rocky
straight up like a video game.
when Rocky and Drago hit gloves, like you hear a loud just buzz.
Just like he is a machine in this movie.
Which
And then like in the fight, they really just go all out with
they
that,
go like
which
Rocky
is
gets his absolute hand like ass handed to him, but then still comes out on top.
yeah. Which I think that's like one interesting thing is like throughout the whole movie, you see Drago kind of just be like this super serious person, but it's only until like after he starts to like lose that he finally get to see more emotion out of them, where he actually starts to talk more and like he starts to take Rocky a lot more serious. In a way, he kind of gets to have some respect to Rocky as like a person and as a fighter.
Right.
He treats him as like a real threat for him, as a fighting machine.
But I guess before we get into like concluding up Rocky 4, Andrew actually brought this up to me before we started filming that Drago being the way he was, like being controlled by Russia, was actually based off of a stance that was used in real life politics. You want to get into that real quick?
Oh yeah, I don't know how much you know about like the new Soviet man. Like this was basically like the new ideal created in the Soviet Union about what all their people would be like now, like moving forward under like the communist ideology. And it was basically about like how everyone moving forward will be like I can't remember exactly, but they will all be like super strong, serious, great thinkers and all that. And most importantly, they will be like super selfless to like the cause of they'll be like almost willing to like die for the fight of communism. It was like, and the whole thing about that, and I think the movie kind of takes into, is how throughout this whole movie, Drago really was like this Soviet machine whose whole life purpose was just to be, this winner for the Soviet Union. And I think like an interesting line that you see in at the very end of the fight on the final round is there where after all the crowd kind of just abandons him and starts to cheer for Rocky, he says out loud to himself that he's no longer doing this fight for like the Soviet Union. He's doing this fight for me now because now it's something where he cares about. And I think it's kind of interesting where by the end of the movie he becomes less of like this perfect machine and it becomes more of like his own person as a character, which I think it kind of it shows in a way why Rocky was able to win in it again because he had that eye of the tiger, I guess you could say. He had that spirit in him, which I think is like it shows. Even though this movie is very goofy, like it's not a serious movie at all. It shows like even in sort of like the subtle, I guess, even like political commentary. There's some seriousness to it that
Y-
Stallone was trying to get across.
You told me this, but apparently the Soviet Union wasn't the only one that tried to have
Oh
like
yeah,
this Superman. Apparently the Nazis were actually also trying to
oh
do the
yeah. I
same
think
thing.
they call him like the Ubermensch or something like that. A lot of like the countries at that time envisioned like the perfect citizen, like the perfect like citizen who will be the ideal person to like carry like the country forward. It was a very big thing during like it was kind of like something during like the 1940s and 50s and like kind of just carried on, especially in like Soviet Union since unlike the Nazis they went past like World War II.
And me and Matthew have talked about this in the past, like privately before, but really, I think this is one of the last times we'll really see like a big like political propaganda movie based off a certain situation because really you don't really see that really anymore with like current events because
Yeah,
usually
not
if you do
really.
have like political propaganda movies it's usually about like a historical thing, but you'll never see a movie now that's about like current wars going on. You just
Yeah.
companies don't do them
It's not
anymore.
like it's not like World War II where you literally had Disney making like all kinds of like propaganda films for the American government. Like it's very much like a different time than how things were back then.
I think the last time we got a
Yeah,
movie like that was like there was a movie with like Kim Jong Un or something recently.
the interview. Yeah, the reason why that was like pretty much the last propaganda movies because Seth Rogen, James Franco had to hire extra security because North Korea was getting on their ass. So film companies
Yeah,
at like after that, I don't mean to get off topic, but after that movie, they were like, okay, let's not do any like pro-American, anti-country, movie anymore, because they're just too afraid.
So really, I
unless you're
mean,
Call of Duty, then they kind of get away with it.
but really, no, I mean,
Mm.
But that's something else.
Rocky Four is a product of its time because while I think
Definitely.
like Rocky One, Two, and to an extent kind of three, I feel like a lot of those stories will live on. Like I think 50 years from now, Rocky One will still be remembered like this timeless
Yeah.
message. Rocky Four is just the pinnacle. It's like a time capsule almost. Like this really
Yeah.
was what the 1980s was about.
Yeah, in that way, I think this movie's gonna live for a long time in the heads of people, but for like very different reasons than like Rocky One, for example. Like it really is like in a way it acts as like a good point of like research and like getting a view of like what the culture was like at during especially during like the early 80s at that moment.
I think what's the rating for this? Because this is like a different Rocky movie. Or what's your rating for this one?
I think I would give this probably a good 7 out of 10. It's an entertaining movie, but not as good as the last three movies. It's entertaining as fuck. It's fun.
Yes.
I think I would agree. I would also give it about a 7 or a 7.5 because it's a fun movie. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a good movie. I think I appreciate the movie more as like a propaganda film rather than a character film though, because obviously the first three Rocky movies were about more the characters and the drama, which in my opinion I think I still prefer. But this
Yeah,
movie, I still had a lot of fun with this movie. Like I feel like I could see myself because like Andrew said, I feel like this is one of the most rewatchable Rocky movies because you could just have this
definitely.
on in the background and not even think about anything.
It's very rewatchable in that point, and I think that's why personally I would give it like a 7.5. It's not obviously not as good as the previous movies, but it's both A, very rewatchable and just a fun movie in general, and B, I do think like the sort of political commentary it has is still like at least interesting. Like it's not like this movie doesn't have anything for you to think about. It's not super mindless, but it's also like still just a very it's still primarily a fun movie, which I think I respect even now.
Also, can we just acknowledge that this movie predicted something? You know what this movie predicted? So, this movie came out, what, 1985, right? 1985?
Yep.
Okay. So, the fight takes place on Christmas Day, right?
Mhm.
In 1991, that's when the Soviet Union collapses. What day does the Soviet Union collapse? Christmas
On
Day.
Christmas Day.
So literally, this movie predict like 6 years into it, it predicted the demise of the Soviet Union.
Damn. Shit. Rock. I guess we
Rocky,
won.
Rocky Four.
Rocky won.
So literally,
Fucking
the night, the
Rocky
night,
ended the Cold War.
the night that Ivan Drago fell to Rocky, 6 years later, the Soviet Union fell to the United States.
Um, I just it's almost prophetic in that way with how Stallone did. I don't know how it happened, but the guy was almost a prophet in that way. It's kind of crazy to think about.
But no, Rocky Four, it's a fun movie.
It's
And
an entertaining movie. It's a ride, all right.
well, since we brought up the 90s now, I think we need to talk about. We all knew this movie was next. Rocky
Rocky
5.
Five.
All right, let's
To talk about the best Rocky movie.
the best Rocky movie. Because you know why this is the best Rocky movie?
Wahoo!
Because for starters, when this movie starts, you see Rocky's butt. 10 out of 10.
Rocky Cheeks, baby.
You see the Rocky cheeks. You see him taking a shower with his ass hanging out.
Oh boy.
Uh,
Movie was PG-13 just for that, I guess.
yep. Not only that, we also get to see drawings that Robert was drawing with boobs.
Oh my god,
What an
dude.
artist.
What
Pretty
an
great.
artist. Yeah,
Okay, the one thing I should say about Rocky Five is that Sylvester Stallone, you see in the '90s, he wanted to make an attempt at bringing Rocky back to his roots. You know,
Yeah.
like in the film, Rocky ends up going poor again due to like some financial bullshit that doesn't make any sense. So
Yeah.
that's what he was trying to do in this movie, kind of bring Rocky back to those like humble roots, but it did not work. Like Sylvester Stallone, he does not
No.
talk about this movie. Like in Rocky Balboa, Rocky Six, like during the opening credits when they were going through all the movies, they skipped Rocky Five. Like it's like they want to act like Rocky Five never existed. So yeah, this is definitely the
Yeah.
weakest film in the franchise.
yeah,
Before we like go too hard on it, I do think there's one good scene in it that I think we should talk about before we just trash on like what is maybe not like a terrible movie, but it's pretty mediocre.
yeah.
And that's the
Yeah.
scene with him and Mickey. I think that scene is actually pretty sweet all around. I think it was like a very heartwarming scene to show that how Mickey, by training Rocky, he was able to find like a purpose in life again. And Rocky, in a way, is like what kept him living even like far longer than like he would expect to, you know.
Right.
But I think like that flashback scene was just very heartwarming to see, especially given like it's been a while at that point since he's been dead.
Well, if you wasn't here, I probably wouldn't be alive today. The fact that you're here and doing as well as you're doing gives me, what do you call it, a motivation, huh? To stay alive. Because I think that people die sometimes when they don't want to live no more.
Nature's smarter than people think.
Yeah, that's one thing I will give Five this the benefit of the doubt. I think when it comes to like mentioning Mickey and all that, I think it's really sweet just seeing Rocky just come back to Mickey's gym while it's kind of abandoned, like no one's in there or anything.
Yeah,
Just to see him talk. I think it's good. I just kind of wish the rest of the movie was like that. Which it's funny because they actually brought back the original director for Rocky One, because that's the thing. Even though Stallone did write Rocky One, a different guy directed it. I think his name is like
yeah,
John something. But after that, then Stallone started directing them. Well, in Five, they actually brought him back as the director because like Matt said, they really tried to bring back the roots of the original, but
yeah.
just execution was so bad. Especially with the whole tax thing, like even to this day, like just rewatching it today, I still don't understand like how it works.
Like it's something about like Polly giving like this guy money to invest in something, but the investment didn't go well, so they lost all the money. Like I think it was some housing thing. I don't know. It was kind of dumb, and really was kind of like an excuse they made just for them to get poor again.
I feel like they could have just had Rocky retire and move back. I don't think they really had to make him go poor or something. It just
I don't know.
felt like a
Like the
plot
movie
point.
tries to do like a lot of things that I just don't think it does well. I think if it was just focused on Rocky trying to move on and peacefully retire, I think it could have been fine. But it does like it has him like being poor and going back home again. And it has like the whole like the family drama between him and his son, like all that stuff is just it's not that good.
And that's another thing with his son. Like, like how after Rocky 2, like the movies started having kind of like a time jump, like they would just like jump maybe just a few
Yeah.
months or years next. Well, for 4 and 5, like they say that 5 takes place right after Rocky 4. That's why we see Rocky fly back to the United States. But I think we needed a time jump because now all of a sudden his kid's a teenager now. He went from being like an 8-year-old kid to like a 13-year-old teen. So like
Yeah.
during the one night that Rocky was gone, apparently his son was able to have his balls drop in the span of 1 week. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's the Rocky genes, man. He's part of the
You gotta
Rocky.
think about it. Like, yeah, I guess it is the Rocky genes. But you gotta think about it. All they could have done was like, after Rocky Four, Rocky after his shower where we get to see his ass, he comes home. That's it. But then it cuts to years later, and he retired, and his son's a teenager, and they go poor. Like they could
Yeah,
have done
like
that.
I understand what the movie was trying to do with the son dynamic between Rocky and his son, but
yeah.
it just falls flat for me, man.
It feels like it doesn't feel in character for him to like maybe like a bit, but like it just feels like a disservice. It feels kind of disrespectful for like who Rocky seemed to be as like a father up to that point. Because before then we got like a couple scenes, and they were usually like sweet scenes of him being like a caring father. But like for this movie to kind of just drop that to where he's pretty much like ignoring his son when like he needs him a lot is just I don't know. It's not something you really want to see out of a character like Rocky. I feel.
Yeah, and then we get the whole thing with Tommy Gunn and Rocky, which on paper I actually didn't dislike that. I think Rocky like training a new guy is, not a
Yeah,
bad idea. And I actually kind of liked how Tommy because Rocky brings this up that Mickey was trying to prevent him from like the more corporate side of boxing, but obviously
yeah,
Gunn he falls into the corporate side and turns on Rocky. I feel like if the movie was focused more on just Rocky and Gunn rather than this whole family dynamic, like, cause the whole family dynamic, it's stupid. Also, I the movie also I don't think really needed to be 2 hours long, like the same length as
no,
Rocky 1 and 2. It could have easily been an hour and a half, like 3 and 4 were.
no. It did not to be. It didn't need to be all as long as like the previous one was. But hey, honestly, I feel like this movie, out of all the movies, could have been like the shortest. But again, because they have like all this extra stuff, like with the family stuff, or like them going poor, it's just it's just a lot of stuff that wasn't really that well thought out to begin with. Add to that, like the story in general, it's just not that engaging. It's just kind of
Very just okay, really.
it's not bad. Like there's still scenes I do like, and I think the story is like it's still competent. It's still like watchable. Like it's like yeah, you get the message of like Rocky learning to like let go of like his boxing career and stop trying to like live it vicariously through Tommy while also treating his family better or whatever. But like there's something to it, but like it's either out of character or it's kind of like half baked or it's just not even that interesting to in general. And so everything it does, it's just kind of
Don't really think I agree with like Stallone trying to like remove it from history. Like I think we should
Yeah,
still acknowledge that Rocky 5 exists. However, it definitely is like the least memorable and my least favorite of.
yeah. I think personally, like I definitely think it's my least favorite film of the series. Like even including like Creed, it's still like the worst film in like the whole series in general.
I think for Rocky standards, obviously it's not good, but I think for just movie standards, it's just okay. It's a very okay
It,
movie.
like what this movie feels like? It feels like a direct to DVD movie. It feels like a sitcom movie. Like it doesn't feel all that grandiose or as high quality as like the previous movies were.
Which is
Like it's just
which
yeah,
is part of the reason why Stallone made Balboa, because he didn't want 5 to end off
yeah,
like
because
that.
like even like let's say Balboa didn't exist. Do you think this would have been a great ending? Like does this feel like a proper ending?
I don't think so.
I don't. Nah.
So,
Like it's fine as like a again, it's fine as like the fifth movie in like a 6-part series. But like if this was like literally the final movie we got to see Rocky in, it definitely would have been disappointing.
It's just it's okay. It's just nothing I would go crazy about. I feel like
Yeah.
when I rewatch these movies, I feel like this is probably the one I'm gonna come back to the least.
Yeah, this is like the one movie that I just would never really have like the desire to watch, other than maybe like rewatching the series as a whole. Yeah.
I will say one scene I do like enjoy in this movie is the street fight though. I
Yeah.
do
Oh
think
yeah.
it's actually pretty entertaining.
I think it's a cool way to like have them still have a fight in the movie without it like going right into like boxing. I think it's kind of cool how they still kept that into.
I think part of it enjoy ironically too, because just hearing the fact just Rocky says, "Oh, my ring's outside." It's like, okay, okay. Tommy gun only fights in the ring. My ring's outside.
I'm
If
sorry
you
about the
touch, I
background.
sue.
Touch me and I'll sue. Just
Um,
uppercut. It's just motherfucker. Which also, who is this guy anyway? Like this is like
he literally shows up out of nowhere in the beginning of the movie, trying to like hustle Rocky into like another fight, and it's just the guy is so goofy.
Also, I will say that the soundtrack of this movie is so 90s because while Rocky
Mm,
4 was so 80s with its music, all you hear in a Rocky 5 is just MC Hammer and like all this rap music. Like this is just 90s right here.
yeah, just 90s music.
But
I don't think there's much else to talk about this
yeah, I
movie for
think we
you.
can all collectively agree this is the worst in the Rocky franchise. Like no doubt about it.
It's just
Not necessarily a bad movie. It's just oh, it's whatever.
it's okay. It's
I think my rating's like
it's.
I'd give it like a 6 out of 10, honestly. What about y'all?
Yeah, I'll
I give
definitely
it
give
like
it
a
a
7.
6
Like
out of 10 for me.
I'm probably more lenient than you guys for this movie because I do find like some things enjoyable, but overall it's a 7. It's an okay movie, and that's about it.
It's just it's a movie, I guess.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, but thankfully the next movie we're gonna talk about, Rocky Balboa. There's a
Oh, that's
lot
a proper ending.
there's a lot I gotta say, but let's get into that.
Yeah,
Stallone
which came out in
Stallone
2006.
which I was alive by then, so this is the
I
only
was
Rocky
Yeah,
2 years
movie.
old by then, so
Yeah.
I was 3.
mm,
So I can say I was alive when this movie came out. Obviously, I didn't see it because I don't think a 2-year-old me was watching a Rocky movie, but
I don't even think I knew what a Rocky. I don't think I even knew what rocks were, let alone Rocky, man. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, so true.
oh,
But no, Stallone made this movie solely for the fact he didn't want 5 to be the finale. And like Matthew said, like in the intro where they show all the movies, I don't think you said there's no mention of 5.
Yep.
no,
I mean, I think Stallone, like in my opinion, like I mean, in part 6, it's pretty much continues part 5. Rocky's still kind of poor, but this time he's running a restaurant and stuff like that. So I don't know, maybe he just didn't feel like it was necessary to mention 5, but honestly, it could be because he just wants to leave it alone. Like he doesn't want to, even touch 5 with like how do you say, like a third liter pole or whatever.
Yeah.
yeah, like I hear like he even like hates that movie now. Maybe he's gotten like a bit softer on it recently, but he kind of hates that movie just for like the impact it had on the series.
No, I mean, there's literally interviews of Stallone where people ask him how would you rate the Rocky movies. Every time he gets to 5, he just says 0 or 1 out of 10. Like he just hates that movie.
Yeah,
But
I don't think it's that bad as he says it is, but you can kind of get how he might feel given like
yeah,
since he's like the one who helped make it, he kind of feels like the burden of disappointment with it.
but while like how Rocky 5 was solely made, to bring Rocky back to its like old roots of him living in Philly. While I think that movie failed at it, this movie succeeds at that.
This movie really feels like a sort of reimagining of the first one, but instead of like being the story of like this young guy trying to like make his life, it's now about like the story of an old guy trying to continue his after he's lost so much. To the point where like, it feels like a really great like conclusion to like everything since like the first movie. It really feels like the perfect other side to the first Rocky movie.
And there's some emotion because even though we don't see it, Adrian, she's dead in this movie.
Like she really does leave an impact, and I think it was a smart decision for Stallone to do. I think it was a good idea for both Adrian and Rocky as characters.
There's
'Cause-
this scene where Rocky is walking with Paulie and he's looking back at stuff he did with Adrian, like where he went to his old apartment. He said, "This is where I offered Adrian to come inside and all that." Because Rocky, he's still like idolizing and remembering the past, while Paulie is the opposite. He doesn't want to remember it because
yeah, mostly because but he was pretty bad in the past.
yeah, he said, "Rocky, you treated her well. I didn't."
Treated her good. You had the good times. I treated her bad. I don't have to think about this.
She always loved you, Paulie.
Which
Which
that really shows, like, I think this is the best movie with Polly, I think, because this really shows, just how bad of a person Polly was. He kind of took her for granted.
yeah, and like the regret he feels only now after everything's gone. Yeah.
So I think with that, I mean, even though we don't see it, I would say this is one of the more emotional Rocky movies. It feels like I didn't grow up. I'm not a Gen X person, I'm Gen Z, but I can understand like a lot of people that grew up with the original Rocky movie just growing up with this movie like as an adult.
It's a movie that right now I can sort of like empathize with like the position Rocky's in, but I feel like even more so in the future when I've grown old myself and I experience more sort of like loss and experience, I can definitely see myself like really connecting and understanding this movie even more in the future.
Because yeah, if you think
Like,
about most of the people that grew up with Rocky, they're probably in their 50s to 60s now, which is kind of crazy.
yeah.
But And we get some more things in this movie because another thing that this movie does better than five is the relationship with his son. Get that whole message that Rocky gives to him about saying like if you get beat up, you gotta know how to get back up.
I still feel like it kind of comes out of nowhere, like his son being against him again. But there's like a large time jump to it, so you can kind of understand. So you can kind of understand him at the point of his life feeling like he's under his father's shadow. And I think the sort of talk him and his father have of just is I think there's like a lot to learn from that, where basically tells his sons like, hey, ignore like what all these people are saying about you. All that matters is like how you view yourself and how you sort of treat yourself. All these people that you can argue probably don't even care about him. Like you could tell his coworkers probably don't like have his best interests in heart. And so like don't be worried about like being under my shadow. Start worrying about like how you are on your own. And I think in a lesson about how in life you're going to get hit and what matters most is like being able to take it and get back up. And I think that's a good lesson both when you're young but especially now when you're old, as you see with Rocky, because at that point he's taking a huge hit with losing Adrian, and now he's trying to like figure out how does he keep going in this movie. And I think that the sort of journey he takes for that is just really good.
It's a really satisfying, and I mean it's in my opinion I would say it's might be like one of Rocky's best quotes in the entire franchise. We
Yeah,
we also get more in this movie too. The girl that was in the first Rocky movie, what's her name?
like Little Marie, I think.
Yeah, she comes back in this movie.
Yeah, which I think is like a really cool callback. You know, because in the first for a long while it's just like okay, she's just this random girl. Like she was only there in the first movie to show like the nicer side, the more good-hearted side of Rocky. But now, even far in the future, we actually see that he kind of really did left like a sort of positive impact on her. To the point where now, he actually is able to become friends with her. All grown up.
That was one thing I was scared about when watching this movie for the first time a long time ago, was that they're gonna try to make her like the next Adrian with being the love interest and all that, but they don't do that at
Yeah,
all. I mean,
kind of like how like the final fight is similar to the final fight in like the first movie. They do kind of like treat her as like this movie's Adrian, but they obviously do it in like a far more respectful, I think, smarter way than just having her be like a love interest. She's just
yeah,
like a really good friend, you know.
she's like a really good friend. Just having another female in Rocky's life, not something like to replace
Yeah,
Adrian, but something to kind of start something new, you know?
yeah. You kind of see like this reflected in like how Punchy the dog, right? How he when they go and first adopt him, like the thing he tells to like Steps, for example, is that this dog he's still got a lot of life in him. All he needs is like a bit of food, like a home, and a friend. And obviously, you can kind of tell he wasn't really talking about like this old dog. He was talking about himself, and that's like what he was trying to figure out. It's like him trying to get new friends and like just figure out a way to continue his life, which he does succeed in doing. He's able to like make and continue. He's able to continue old friends and make new friends. He's able to reconnect with his son and find a new connection, like with someone like Little Marie.
And I think for that, I mean, it's very sad. I think as an ending to Rocky, it's very satisfying. I mean,
Definitely.
this really is the perfect end to, I would say, Rocky's story. And there's some stuff I will say I'm not the biggest fan of. For example, I think the probably my least favorite aspect of Rocky Balboa is Mason Dixon, because
Yeah,
he's kind of forgettable, honestly. He's kind of just there. They don't really do much with him.
yeah. He's definitely like him and either Tommy Gunn are kind of like the most boring antagonist rivals in the series. They're definitely not as interesting as like Apollo or Drago or Clover. They're kind of just there. They're fine, but they're not all that memorable.
They don't really do that. I mean, like I said, we don't even really get to see much of Dixon. He's kind of just there as a guy to fight Rocky.
He's kind of just the
I mean,
guy who wants to like make a legacy, and have people take him seriously. Which like it's fine, like as like a standard sort of motivation for like an antagonist, but it doesn't make him all that interesting in general.
He's kind of just fine.
Yeah. Which I would say that's like my least favorite part of the movie, but everything else about the movie I think holds up and is like really good.
And it kind of just shows like how far we've gotten with this. Because something I love about Rocky Balboa is the fight that we actually see like actual like graphics on screen. We see
Yeah.
actual real life boxing. It feels like a real fight is going on basically in front of our eyes.
It feels like it really does feel like an authentic like boxing match between like two real boxers. And I think it's a pretty cool thing. And like I think the thing in general that I like about this movie is like it's nice to see like a modern Rocky movie, like an early 2000s Rocky movie with like all the high quality camera and cinematics that you would expect. It's something you can't blame the previous movies, of course, but it's something that's nice to see.
And I
You know,
think
with
as a story, it's a satisfying ending. I think this is a good way to just put a cap on Rocky's story.
Yeah, because like in the movie, he goes on how like there's a monster inside him, and now he feels kind of unsatisfied because he never got that proper ending with his boxing career because of like what happened. That's something we didn't mention about Rocky Five was like he got sick or something. Like apparently, like he got like something with his brain, which again was like another thing with the movie that's kind of just
It just doesn't really make sense, but which
yeah.
makes
But at least like in this movie, they kind of just ignore it. And it's like, okay, let's give Rocky one last boxing match. And I like how it's basically like a reflection of the very first match he got, where it didn't matter if he actually won the match. What mattered is that if he made the distance. And
well,
that's what he was able to do. He
well,
made the distance.
you know what we do get in this movie? So this whole movie is about age, right? Like Rocky's getting older
Yeah.
now. Well, we actually get kind of some commentary on like when it comes to like boxing licenses, because the attorney turns them
Mhm.
down. They say No.
And I think that's like another good like scene where Rocky basically gives like a speech to like the attorneys, like, hey, you know, like right near to like because they're in Philadelphia, obviously. That's where like the Declaration of Independence was made and like the Bill of Rights. And he tells them straight out, it's like, hey, it says right here, I have the right to pursue my happiness. And what you're doing is stopping me from doing that. And I think that was like not just like a good commentary about like boxing, but also even like kind of like maybe the government in general in some manner, especially when it comes to licenses and stuff like that. And I just think that's like, again, Rocky always had that sort of spirit of being a people kind of just being free to pursue like their opportunity and happiness and like and being a better person. And I think that's just like the thing I like most about this movie is like how seeing how Rocky tries to take his life forward despite all the loss he's experienced and just the struggles that he has, him learning to overcome it all and just find new reasons to continue his life and to continue going forward with everything.
I agree. So, what's the rating? Because I mean, for a lot of people, this is rather like one of their favorites, or I think I'd give it maybe an
I,
8.
I give it an 8.5 personally. I think it's pretty good.
I think
I
it's. I
think it's only beaten by like the first Rocky.
What about you, Matt? I think I'd give it an 8. I think I'm gonna give it.
Yeah, I'll definitely give it a. I was gonna give it a 7.5 out of 10, but honestly, I feel like it's really good because like you see, well, like you guys said in the first Rocky movie, he's this like 29-year-old pushing 30, trying to make it big as a boxer. In this movie, he's a 59-year-old pushing 60, and he's trying to like get back to his former glory. So it is a reimagining of Rocky. So I have to give it like an 8 out of 10. I would say my complaints about this movie is that like the main antagonist is not that interesting.
Yeah.
That's pretty much my only complaint. But all in all, it's a solid movie.
And that just shows like how good these movies are. Like, I mean, besides 5, that was just okay.
Yeah.
Every single one of these movies, there's something good to like about it, and each one has its
Yeah.
own identity. Because you're like, okay, what's the Rocky movie about Russia? Rocky 4. What's the one about Mr. T? Rocky 3. What's the one about him finishing the story? Rocky Balboa. There's something new about each one, and I can definitely see myself coming back to these movies. I mean, I already watched the first Rocky movie like twice this year.
Yeah. Like they all have like a value to them that makes them good for like a rewatch, They're all just quality. Besides 5, but 5 is fine.
And we might bring this, like, this might be a future video eventually, because this can be a topic of its own, and we're already, like, been filming for a
Yeah.
couple hours now, but then we have the Creed
Yeah.
franchise, which that kind of, like, brings in, like, a new element. Like, it's kind of like, would you guys say it's like a soft reboot for Rocky, or
Definitely like a soft reboot.
yeah,
I wouldn't really say it's a reboot. It's more of like kind of like a spin-off. It talks about like
Yeah.
Creed's son, trying to make it big as a boxer.
which I
It's
think
a it's a good continuation of the series.
Which I think we'll do a video on that maybe one of these days, but that is definitely like a topic of its own because while it's set in the same universe, it's definitely much different in a lot of aspects.
Yeah.
But if we're just talking about
Yeah,
Rocky
I mean,
1 through 6, it's what else can we say about it?
Really great.
It's great.
yeah,
But what were you
yeah,
gonna
It's
it's
one of the
really
best in like the history of all blockbusters.
but
But
what were you gonna
sorry,
say,
I'll let.
Matthew, about Creed?
Oh, well, I was gonna say like Creed 3 finally did its own thing instead of having like Rocky in the background. So I feel like they're trying to I want to talk about Creed 3 just 1 second. I saw it in the theater and I just didn't really like it that much. I'll save like my
Really?
full opinion in another video. Yeah, I just didn't really like it all that much. I don't know, it's just I didn't really find the characters except for like the main antagonist all that interesting. I don't know, it's just like it just didn't really have that charm that the Rocky series had. I feel like what makes the first two Creed movies work is because it still has that charm, but unfortunately the third one just it just didn't do it for me for some reason. But that's a topic for another
Yeah.
video. But yeah, but all in all, Rocky franchise, it's great. It's a great
It's great.
franchise that's gonna stand the test of time, and I think people beyond our generation are gonna continue watching these movies and talk about them until the end of time.
So I guess
I
to
hope so.
wrap up this video, I guess to wrap it up, I guess let's do our scoreboards for each of the Rocky
Number
movies.
one,
What
so
is the best Rocky movie in your opinion? For me, I'm gonna say
It's the
Rocky
first
1.
one.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Rocky 1.
I'll have to say the first one. Now, for a while, it was Rocky 2, but I like the first one a lot
I mean,
better
it won
now.
best. I mean, it was, Best Picture for 1977, and
It's just
it's a movie that people are still bringing up to this very day.
it's very much like close to like a perfect as a movie you can expect, especially given like the circumstances of like how it was made. It really is impressive like how good it ended up all being. It's just
So,
it's a masterpiece in some.
so for my second favorite, I think I'm gonna give it to Rocky 3. I think I'll give it to 3 tonight, but what about you guys?
I'm giving it
I
to
would.
Balboa.
I'm gonna give my second favorite to Rocky 2 because in that one, you see Rocky after the fame and he's trying to survive. So that's gonna be my second favorite, Rocky 2.
That's a valid choice. And I think after 3 for me, I think I'm gonna give it to Rocky Balboa. I was while before filming this, I was really debating like which one do I like more, 2 or Balboa, because I flip between those movies all the time. I think today I will say I put Balboa at 3. However, I think 2 might just, go back in that spot, but I'll go with Balboa for now. What about you guys for third spot?
Third
My
spot for
third
me will be
favorite.
oh sorry, I'm gonna go with Rocky 3. I think that was just like a
Okay.
really good movie, and it's is very replayable.
All right. Well, the third spot would be for me Rocky 6 or Balboa, whatever you guys want to call it. Yeah, that would be the third spot for me.
And I think next, I think I will go Rocky 2. As of right now, like I think I could switch it up, but I think I'll go 2 right now. But what about you guys?
It's the same for me. I have Rocky 2 as number.
All right. Number 3. We're all number 3, right?
We're on
Oh shit.
4.
Four.
Yeah, we're on number 4. My bad. My bad. Yeah. For number 4, I'll have to go with Rocky 3.
Okay, good choice.
That's a good.
And and then after that, I think we all have the same
Yeah,
placement. I think for 5, I'm gonna give it to Rocky 4. Just a fun
yeah.
movie. But I think stacked up to the other ones, it's not, the best one. It's still enjoyable.
It's still at least a fun, enjoyable movie. I still say it's at least. I think you can have like a good argument that it's still like a good movie.
And then last but not least is Rocky
Rocky.
5.
At the bottom.
Of
5.
course,
Yeah.
like no, everyone saw that coming. But
Yeah, it's just something we out of like all our rankings. I'm pretty sure Rocky 5 was like the most unanimous one. It's just the worst. It's just okay.
and
It's just
I'm pretty sure in everyone's ranking, I'm pretty sure 5 is everyone's least favorite.
yeah.
Maybe with the exception
Yeah.
of my dad, because my dad actually likes Rocky 5, surprisingly, which I still gotta ask
A
him
bit
about that.
surprising.
He put 5 above 4, so I don't know. Yeah,
It's crazy.
yeah, but I'm glad that we actually got to talk about these movies. I've been wanting to talk about these movies for a while because, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. That's the reason why Rocky's on the logo of Cinemore for a reason. So, with that, this is the ending of season 1. So, after this, after we get this uploaded, Cinemore reviews will be going on a little hiatus because we're going to be working on season 2. But later this year, we will be working on season 2. So I hope you guys enjoyed season 1. Trust me, there's a lot in season 2. But
Oh yeah,
before
there's
we
gonna be a lot.
trust me, but before we
Yeah.
conclude this, I want to give a shout out to Andrew, the voice of Mike, because for season 1 finale, we wanted to just add in a guest, just to make this the final
I
episode of
love
season 1.
vodka.
Yeah.
Loves vodka. But yeah, thank you to Mike slash Andrew for being on the show, and hope you guys enjoyed it. And as for when season 2 will, upload, we're not sure yet, but we are working on it. So I hope you guys enjoyed
No.
Cinemore season 1 so far.
Has to end with my camera going out of battery, whatever.
Anything else you guys want to say?
No,
Um,
I enjoy this series, and I had a good time reviewing it.
Mike, anything else you want to say? I don't want to speak to Andrew. I want to speak to Mike one last time.
Yeah, Mike.
Oh well, I love Rocky Four. Rocky Four, very good. I love Rocky Four. The Russian cut, it's so good. I might love vodka, but I love Rocky Four more.
Oh yeah.
Vodka. Thanks for watching, y'all.
Well, Mike, I didn't want you to spend the night by yourself in the storage room, so I'll crash with you tonight. And hopefully it should be good now because I bought some mattresses just for us to lay on in the storage. But yeah, man, take as long as you need here until, the mob goes away. But, alright, Mike, well, I'm gonna go to bed. I'm super tired, so good night, man.
Good night, Braylon.
Wake up!